like to acknowledge my colleagues, Commissioner Bill Bratton, Commissioner Polly Trottenberg, Commissioner Mary Bassett, Commissioner Stacy Cumberbatch, TLC Chief Operating Officer Conan Freud, and we have a number of elected officials here as well, including Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, who has been a long-standing champion on issues of street safety. I want to make sure I'm right about the other elected officials who are here, so I'll call out and people can correct me. I saw Assemblymember Brian Kavanaugh as I was coming in. I believe Councilmember Helen Rosenthal is here. Oh, there I go. Got my camera angle here. There we go. Helen Rosenthal, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, Senator Brad Hoylman, Councilmember Mark Levine, Councilmember Ben Kalos. Who else is here? Councilmember, help me, is that you, Costa? I don't have my glasses on. Costa Constantinides, did I say it right? Councilmember Vanessa Gibson. David Greenfield, Councilmember David Greenfield, who's been a leader on issues of speed limit. We thank you for that, Councilmember. Councilmember Adonis Rodriguez. Who am I missing? Am I missing anyone? Okay, excellent. Thank you. I want to thank Principal Robert O'Brien of PS 75 for hosting us here today. And I want to emphasize we wanted to be here today both because of the location of the school and the history that the school has experienced, but also because of the many, many people we seek to protect in this town every day. We have a special feeling, a special imperative for protecting our children, and we wanted to be here to emphasize that. Every school day, many of the children who come to school here at PS 75 walk through an intersection where 3 pedestrians were struck and killed in the course of the last month. A student at this very school was struck nearby 2 years ago, and he survived, but he carries those injuries to this day. Principal O'Brien doesn't accept that reality as an educator, as someone who looks out for his kids. The people of this community don't accept that reality as parents, as neighbors. As mayor, I'm here to say that we in City Hall don't accept this reality either. We don't accept a status quo in this town that leads to so many people losing their lives who we could have saved. The tragedies we saw right in this neighborhood in the last month are part of a broader citywide epidemic. More than 20 lives have been lost in our streets so far this year. The statistics are sobering. Being struck by a car is the leading cause of injury-related death for children younger than 15. It's the second leading cause of injury-related death for our senior citizens. We talked about this the last time we gathered on this topic. Last year in New York City, 333 homicides. According to the most recent statistics for last year, 286 traffic fatalities. Those two numbers are shockingly similar. Last week, Commissioner Bratton, Commissioner Trottenberg, and I met with some of the family members who lost children, who lost loved ones in these crashes. Some of them are here today. We want to thank them for all they have done. They have been extraordinary in their advocacy on behalf of the people of the city, for their courage, for their strength. They could have chosen to turn away. Instead, they have devoted themselves to protecting others so no other family has to experience what they experienced. And I think that is the way to understand this challenge. It could happen to any of us at any time. As a parent, I know that particularly in this crowded, dense city, the danger is lurking at all times for our children. And that's why we have to act. We have to act aggressively, and we won't wait to act, because we have to protect our children. We have to protect all New Yorkers now. Last month, we pledged that we would convene all pertinent city agencies to act, and our working group was charged with taking our commitment to reducing and then eliminating traffic fatalities and putting it into practice. They've come back, I think, with an extraordinary result. I really want to thank all of the agencies represented here today. They've been asked to do a lot in a very brief period of time, and they've come back with a document that is clearly comprehensive and bold and serious and focused. They've done their job, and they've done it well, and it's a clear roadmap for taking us forward. Now, some people hear the phrase Vision Zero, and they ask what's really possible. They ask if these are new ideas, speculative ideas. Well, we want to emphasize today these are tried and tested ideas, or ideas that work. They've been working in other parts of the country. They've been working around the world. The Vision Zero strategy is clear. It combines enforcement, education, and engineering to systematically confront the factors that lead to crashes. And that involves everything from poorly designed streets to dangerous and reckless behavior. And the fatality rates, here's the proof that's so important to focus on. The fatality rates in jurisdictions that have adopted Vision Zero policies, in places including Minnesota and Washington State, these fatality rates have fallen over 25% faster than the national average over the last decade or more. New York City's Vision Zero Action Plan comprises 63 specific initiatives that will be managed by a variety of offices and agencies, including City Hall, including the NYPD, Department of Transportation, the Taxi and Limousine Commission, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. These initiatives include more enforcement against speeding with more precinct-level personnel and added personnel at the Highway Division of the NYPD. Includes developing borough-specific street safety plans to redesign dangerous corridors and intersections. Our plan includes expanding neighborhood slow zones in residential neighborhoods. There's also a number of initiatives that we will work with our colleagues in the state government to achieve. We will work with our state leaders to increase our ability to deploy more speed and red light enforcement cameras. And because of the recent success we've had on this front in Albany, and we want to thank Governor Cuomo for his strong support, the city is now in a position to deploy red light cameras at 150 locations and speed cameras at 20 locations. And since the speed enforcement cameras were activated last month, they have issued nearly 4,000 speeding tickets already. We're going to make the case for greater authority that will empower us to place cameras wherever they are needed to protect our people. And we expect that there will be a receptive audience in Albany to this initiative. We're reducing, in this process, the goal is to reduce the citywide speed limit, the default speed limit, meaning the speed limit wherever there is not a specific posting otherwise. The default speed limit would become 25 miles per hour as opposed to the current 30 miles an hour. So again, going from 30 miles per hour as the default speed limit to 25 miles per hour citywide. This is a new approach that we believe will truly save lives. Reducing the citywide speed limit has received tremendous support already in the City Council, and we believe it's the most holistic way to approach the problem with our partners in Albany. The likelihood of a fatal crash, and this statistic is very powerful, the likelihood of a fatal crash drops significantly for speeds below 30 miles per hour. So we get those speeds down, it will be the difference between losing a life and saving a life. And default speed limits on streets filled with pedestrians shouldn't be at a level that could be fatal to pedestrians. They have to be at a level that will give the maximum chance of saving pedestrian lives. Part of our plan is also stiffer penalties on TLC drivers who drive dangerously. As with every field of endeavor in this city, we know vast majority of folks who drive taxis and car service cars drive responsibly, but some do not. We have to recognize that TLC drivers play a particular role in our city and set the tone on our streets. We're going to work with the drivers, we're going to work with the fleet owners, the dispatchers, and the TLC on common sense reforms to protect passengers, drivers, and pedestrians alike. Now, making our interagency Vision Zero task force permanent at City Hall is a crucial part of this plan that will guarantee that there is constant oversight of the implementation of the action plan and coordination of further efforts. As you've heard throughout this process, this is a collaborative agenda. It requires tremendous coordination and collaboration between the agencies, and I again want to thank all of the agencies represented, not just for what they're doing in terms of the plans, the implementation within their own agencies, but there's been a tremendous spirit of collaboration and willingness to find ways to help each other in this work. I want to commend them all for that. Collaboration also involves a close working relationship with the City Council and with our partners in Albany. And of course, collaboration requires constant connection to the grassroots and collaborations with community leaders and activists and everyday citizens who want us to get this right and want to be part of the solution. This entire plan involves a number of physical and material measures, but it's about much more than speed bumps and the issuing of violations. It's also about all of us taking greater responsibility. Every time we get behind the wheel and every time we step out on the street. Our lives are literally in each other's hands. Our children's lives are in each other's hands. And today, we begin the work of living up to that responsibility. Let me just say a couple of words in Spanish, and then I'd like to bring up Commissioner Bratton, followed by Commissioner Trottenberg. No se trata de aumentar multas. Se trata de ser más responsable cuando estamos conduciendo o caminando por la calle. Tenemos la responsabilidad de cuidarnos mutuamente. Hoy comenzamos a cumplir con esa responsabilidad. With that, let me welcome Commissioner Bratton.
Thanks, sir. Good morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to have the New York City Police Department participate in the collaboration, and this is a true collaboration around this issue of improving traffic safety in the city. This morning, I transferred and appointed to the head of the Transportation Bureau of the New York City Police Department, Chief Tommy Chen. He's coming over from Community Services. He has been working this past month on the task force that has produced this report that's being made available to you today. Chief Chen will be coordinating our efforts going forward, and some of those efforts are identified in the plan. There's an old saying in policing that you can expect what you inspect. And in this area, we have been doing a lot of inspection, taking a look at what we've been doing and what might we do better. And I'm very comfortable moving forward that the initiatives that are outlined in the mayor's document, that they will move the city a great way toward the Vision Zero goal that is envisioned in the plan. Police Department will actively participate in this initiative. As the mayor referenced, that we are significantly increasing the resources of the department to enforce as well as investigate incidents that occur around this issue. In particular, we are significantly increasing the staffing in our highway division, as well as the investigative capabilities of the department so that we will be able to investigate all collisions with injuries so that we get a much clearer picture of what were the causes of accidents. We are also focusing our department efforts on two key areas. Over the last 5 years, it's apparent that 70% of incidents involving pedestrian fatalities involve the issue of speed or failure to yield, and that the department's efforts going forward will focus very significantly on those types of violations, speeding violations and failure to yield to pedestrians at intersections. we'll be enforcing many rules and regulations, but that is the one that we feel, coupled with the technology that's being acquired, the increased red light cameras, et cetera, that we can have the quickest and most significant impact in reducing particularly pedestrian fatalities. This is a great plan. It's come together very quickly, and it's come together very quickly because a lot of very smart people with a lot of expertise have joined together to share that expertise, to share that ideas. And to that end, that our traffic stat, you're very familiar with our CompStat initiative at the NYPD, but we also have a number of other stats, including traffic stat. Traffic stat, Chief Chan proposes to immediately open that up to many of the entities that will be involved in this plan so that we can share our information so that as we go about inspecting, we can ensure that what we are inspecting leads to the goal that the mayor is striving toward, and that is effectively significantly reduce fatalities and injuries as we move toward a goal of Vision Zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Trottenberg.
Thank you. Thank you for the step, Mr. Mayor.
Here to help.
And thank you for your leadership and passion on making our streets safer. It's an honor to be part of an administration that has made transportation safety and Vision Zero such a top priority and something that we care about so urgently. I'm also honored to have a leader like Commissioner Bratton as a partner in Vision Zero and my other agency partners. And I want to say thank you. Obviously, you see some of the men and women here today who are on the front lines from the NYPD and a couple folks here from DOT. They help make our streets safely through enforcement, through education, through outreach to local businesses, and I want to say thank you to them. I also want to express my sympathies, as the mayor did, to the New Yorkers, including some of the people with us here today, who've lost loved ones, family members, friends, and neighbors. We've heard their powerful and tragic stories and grieve with them. They're going to help us make Vision Zero a reality. We're on the Upper West Side today, and I want to start out by taking a moment to announce that later this week, DOT is going to be installing a speed board on 96th Street, something this community has requested. At DOT, we've been able to see, as the mayor has seen through tried and true methods, that pedestrian-oriented projects and street designs can save lives. Over the past few years, our street design safety projects throughout the 5 boroughs have been able to reduce fatalities at specific streets and intersections anywhere from 20 to 88%. I'll give just a couple of examples. On the Queens side of the Pulaski Bridge, DOT installed some new crosswalks and signals, expanded pedestrian islands, simplified vehicle movements through a complicated intersection. This made it easier for pedestrians to navigate. Injuries dropped a staggering 63% in just 3 years, thanks to those redesigns. In the South Bronx on McCombs Road, DOT reduced the number of lanes, built out a large pedestrian island, and extended a median. The result, crashes with injuries fell by 41% in 3 years. So as the mayor says, we do know how to do this. We need to take the good work we're doing and make it citywide. And DOT's traffic safety engineers are nationally, internationally recognized as leading innovators in safe street designs. We have terrific safety projects and educational outreach, and they are starting the process of transforming transportation culture, but there is still a lot to do, and we feel a sense of urgency. Today, through Vision Zero, we're going to challenge ourselves to do more, to take our safety efforts to the next level, working closely with our partners throughout the city. This year, DOT will implement 50 new safety projects at corridors and intersections citywide, including adding crosswalks and restricting left turns right in this neighborhood at 96 and Broadway. These projects will also include innovative and aggressive new strategies to reduce speeds on 25 large arterial roadways throughout the city. As many of you know, these broad and busy streets, they were originally designed for the fast movement of cars and trucks, not for safe pedestrian and cyclist movement, and they present a great safety challenge throughout the city. We will also create neighborhood slow zones, install more speed humps, enhance street lighting at 1,000 intersections, and improve street markings. We will continue our safety ad campaigns and conduct safety education outreach at 500 schools a year. We will work with vulnerable groups like seniors and the disability community to make sure we're implementing the kind of street safety improvements that best meet their needs. And as the mayor said, we look forward to working with our elected officials here and in Albany, and so many of them are here today, and with advocates and families to push for legislation that will reduce New York City's speed limit and give us greater say over the placement and number of speed cameras and red light cameras. These tools are essential for achieving the Vision Zero program. Vision Zero power in the end will come from all our collective efforts, governments at all levels, advocates and community leaders, the companies that do business on our streets, and all the New Yorkers who walk or drive or ride. Together, under Mayor de Blasio's leadership, we aim to make New York City the safest city in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just two more quick points before we take your questions. I want to first say at a point in my career, I spent 8 years as a council member, and I think I can say, looking at my colleagues from both city and state government, that those who are closest to their constituents and understand best the needs of their constituents and hear all the time from their constituents what their concerns are, I think that they're in the best position to help us achieve these goals because they realize how urgent this is to the people we represent and how the people are demanding very tangible and local solutions that they can see and feel. And that's what we intend to do with this plan. That's why it's such a comprehensive plan. That's why it was put together with all the agencies involved. Now, the second point is one of urgency. We truly feel this is something that is definitional to the work we do. I think we're all supposed to go to gym now. That's right, that would be good for all of us. This is definitional to the work we do. Defining this mission in terms of our core responsibility in government, which is the health and safety of our people, and understanding that we have to act right now to protect lives. And some of the measures you're hearing here are going to be literally saving lives in the weeks to come. That's why it is so important to us to set this goal the way we have, to involve all the agencies, to work in partnership with our colleagues in the state government and the city council, because there's nothing we're doing that could be more urgent than getting this right. And so we've put a very bold plan before you, and we want the public to know we're holding ourselves to this standard and we intend to achieve these goals. With that being said, on topic first, welcome your questions on topic. Yes.
Last time we were out in Queens, Commissioner Bratton.
Sorry, we won't take that question.
Commissioner Bratton, you were asked about pedestrians and perhaps cracking down on jaywalking, and you wouldn't rule it out. Can you talk about what role pedestrian enforcement will have, and will you enforce rules against pedestrian jaywalking?
Let me start, and then I'll pass it to Commissioner Bratton. You're going to see this plan in detail. I think I'm right. I'm looking to Commissioner Trottenberg and Commissioner Bratton. I think it's 63 items in this plan, if I'm remembering correctly. You're going to see a very comprehensive plan of the things we think will make an impact citywide. We do not include jaywalking enforcement among those items. We do, however, I want to say this very clearly, we do allow local precinct commanders to make a decision about what they think is necessary in any given situation. So I want to be very clear. I hope everyone will accurately portray this. The anti-jaywalking measures are not part of the overall plan, but at the same time, we absolutely respect the right of each precinct commander of the NYPD to make decisions that they think are appropriate within their precinct. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go back to the figure I previously referenced, the idea that over a 5-year period in the city, 70% of the pedestrian fatalities, it was determined that the speed of the vehicle or an inappropriate turning of the vehicle was the most significant causative factor in the accident and the fatality. So with our resources, we're going to put the focus where we can have the most impact most quickly, and that is on dealing with the vehicular component of this. At the same time, as the mayor has indicated, in those areas of the city, if there is a need for based on the precinct commander, or even an individual officer dealing with a situation, need to take action, they are empowered to do that. Officers are given great discretion, but that is not a priority of this plan.
Mayor de Blasio, what role do you see pedestrian plazas playing in Vision Zero, and do you still feel that the jury's out on the Times Square pedestrian plaza?
On Times Square, we haven't actually done that assessment, and I look forward to that. In the general role of the plazas in the plan, let me turn to Commissioner Trottenberg.
Pedestrian plazas, as some of you know, can actually make huge safety improvements, and in some of the projects that I've referenced, Carving out an area for pedestrians to gather safely and be out of the roadway has definitely helped reduce crash and fatality rates. So they have an important role to play, and I'm happy to say we are getting terrific input from neighborhoods all over the city that are interested in looking at pedestrian plazas, both for safety purposes and amenity purposes. And obviously, as this plan moves forward, we'll be looking at those in each of the 5 boroughs.
I want to note that another thing we're trying to achieve here, and there's items in this plan that are really about educating the public. But this very discussion we're having now is part of changing the reality in our town. We want this issue in the front of everyone's mind, and I want to amplify what Commissioner Bratton just said. The central problem is related to our vehicles. We want everyone who gets behind the wheel of a vehicle to think carefully about the situation they're in the densest city in the nation. We want pedestrians to think carefully. This is very much about raising consciousness and changing behaviors. There's a lot, again, of very, very material actions in here. But we hope that every time someone reads one of your stories, they're also asking themselves the question, are they handling their vehicle as responsibly as they could? And we think if that discussion deepens, it's going to have a very practical effect in this town as well. Yes.
You had mentioned opening up traffic stat. Can you elaborate when that's going to happen and how that data will be presented? I know there have been some problems with data in the past.
Sure, that's actually part of a much larger effort to open up a lot more of the department information to the public and to you in the media. I believe that very specifically to Chief Chan as he takes on his new responsibilities, that the first effort will be made to get many of our colleagues from the participating agencies into traffic stat to see what we do. The department also has very significant computer capabilities that we're able to basically share with our colleagues to get our information out to them as they work on their portion of the plan. So that will be part of his responsibilities moving into his new command.
You don't have a due date on that, like when?
Not a date specific, though.
One other thing I'd like to add, I mentioned the sense of collaboration extends to all the different agencies involved and also down to the grassroots. And that means we're going to work with local community boards. That means we're going to work with civic associations. That means we're going to work with block associations. Again, in the public education efforts, in the targeting of problems that have to be addressed. We have put forward a comprehensive plan because we want the people of the city to participate, and we want all the organized leadership at the grassroots level to participate. So I want to emphasize that. On topic still, let's come over here.
There's been an effort before at the city council level to reduce the speed limit. Do you think that the city does have the authority to do that, or are you going to need approval from Albany? And then also on the cameras, how many do you think would be a better number than the 20 we're allowed to have now?
Well, on the cameras, and again, I'll start, and Commissioner Trottenberg may want to add, what we think is important is this is an evolving situation, and we have to constantly update the numbers of cameras according to what we're experiencing. We know there's a lot of intersections that we can't reach under the current limitations. In terms of the dynamics, we believe that a certain level of authority is needed from Albany, and we expect a very positive discussion, working with our colleagues in the City Council, working with our colleagues in Albany, to get us that authority because we can move forward. I think this is an area where there's a growing consensus. Again, I referred to what all of us are hearing from the ground in our neighborhoods, and I think people are hearing it all over the city, all over the state, that we've got to do more to protect people. And so I think this is an area where we're going to find a lot of agreement in Albany.
There are about 500 people who are hit by bicycles, seriously enough to go to the hospital. And I don't see anything in here about enforcing the traffic laws on bicycles. You see them going the wrong way on one-way streets. You see them traveling on sidewalks. You see them doing this right in front of police officers with impunity. And I'm just wondering whether that enforcement is going to be part of this.
Well, this is, again, I'll call up Commissioner Trottenberg to add, but this is a living, breathing plan. So this is the first iteration. We'll be adding as needed as we go along. But I think the public education elements of this plan relate to drivers, relate to pedestrians, and relate to bicyclists. We want everyone to coexist within the law. And so I think that's something that will also be affected by this plan. You want to add?
And probably Commissioner Bratton as well. I think the mayor put it well when he said there is an issue of personal responsibility here. We are going to work with and call upon all users of the roadway to obey the traffic laws, and I think the mayor put it eloquently. We all have each other's safety in our own hands. So I think, as the commissioner has said, there'll be precinct-level enforcement that will be targeted at what the particular needs are in a given precinct. And I don't know if you want to comment specifically on bicycles, but I think we're going to look all over the city and see what are the problems in each area and what we need to do to improve enforcement and safety.
You're going to learn the technique here. There you go.
On that issue, sir, that would be one of the ones that would be left up to precinct level or borough level responsibility. Chief John will certainly help assist in that in terms of the overall tracking of statistics, but certain precincts have more of that as an issue than other precincts around the city, versus the issue of the pedestrian fatalities, et cetera, as a citywide situation. But the bike issues oftentimes very concentrated in certain neighborhoods, certain precincts, a lot of the delivery services, as well as now the growing use of the city bike program. So that is one that will really leave very much at this stage to the discretion of the various precinct commanders, who can then work with Chief Chan if they feel they need additional assistance from the highway units that he commands.
Thanks. I think there's a concern that the NYPD has been focused on fighting violent crime. They've been doing a good job, and the shift in emphasis to Vision Zero policing means that there's a lot new to learn. And I'm wondering if, in addition to hiring people who will be in a segregated highway unit and beefing up that unit, whether there's going to be in-service training or education for the officers in the precincts, because even when it comes to something like the jaywalking enforcement that happened a block away from here, the officers were writing summonses based on state laws that don't even apply in New York City. So I think that there's some basic education that needs to be done in this shift, and I'm wondering if that's part of the 63-point plan.
So a couple of points. One, and I'll turn to Commissioner Bratton. I think the NYPD has done an extraordinary job at fighting crime and keeping the crime level low. And I think the NYPD is an incredibly professional, agile organization. And as the Commissioner said, the use of technology is increasing all the time to strengthen the work of the NYPD. Training, and this is a commissioner who believes profoundly in creating a culture of constant training and improvement of practice. And I think he's also a commissioner who cares deeply about this issue and has sent a signal from the very beginning that this is an issue of today that has to be acted on. So I think you're going to see a lot of emphasis within the NYPD on focusing on this while maintaining our efforts to fight crime. I fundamentally believe we can do both well simultaneously. I think on the other part of your question, this is why it's so important to look at the whole picture locally and to train our officers to confront any of the challenges to safety. And I think, again, in an atmosphere where this is being put on the agenda as a central problem, I think precinct commanders will quickly update their approaches, they'll train their officers appropriately, and they'll supervise appropriately to achieve those goals. So this is really declaring this as a higher priority and a holistic priority. And I think the NYPD is more than ready to address it. Do you want to add?
Actually, the mayor set the stage beautifully for my response that you can't do everything everywhere all the time. You just don't have those resources. So there is prioritization from time to time. Back in 1994, we developed 7 strategies to deal with the issues in the city back in 1994. One of those 7 strategies was traffic. Here again in 2014, that issue is once again one that requires prioritization. So it'll be dealt with in the department in a variety of ways. One, the significant enhancement of the Transportation Bureau and new leadership there, but also a theme within the department that echoes what the mayor's doing citywide, better collaboration. So within the department, the recent assignments of personnel as my deputy commissioners, including a new deputy commissioner for training, part of his role is going to be to ensure that the prioritizations are in fact being met with education and training for our personnel. We're responsible for just huge numbers of laws, ordinances, regulations, impossible to keep up with all of them as they change, as they're done away with, and new ones are added. So when we do these prioritizations, incumbent upon us is to provide to our officers the resources, the education, and training. So that's where the collaboration will come in, so that as Chief Chan is doing his thing, as precinct commanders are doing their thing relative to this plan, that the department's training and education entity is providing the appropriate training in service or to new recruits.
Just wanted two updates. I apologize, I failed to acknowledge George Miranda, the president of Teamsters Joint Council 16. Welcome, George. And your members include people who do work in this field, including?
Truck drivers.
Truck drivers. Thank you. And want to just make clear, we're going to take more questions on this topic. I want to clarify, members of the media only, please, because we have a lot we need to cover with members of the media. Yes.
The DOT shut off a speed camera on Staten Island that had been placed outside of the confines of the state law outlining them for school zones. What do you say to drivers who feel that that shows that these are more about revenue than about safety? And do you think that having placed this camera outside of the state law hurts the chances of the state legislature giving you power to put them more broadly in other areas?
No, I think that was a simple error that's been rectified. I think it's abundantly clear this is about safety. Look at the numbers already, the number of tickets that have been issued. I mean, anyone who knows this town knows there's a speeding problem and we have to address it. And it's obviously directly linked to the number of fatalities. So again, I speak first as a parent. You know, we have to make clear that speeding won't be tolerated, that it has real and horrible results. And I think the folks in this city have come to the conclusion that this issue, this broader challenge, has to be addressed. And they understand that we need to use every tool at our disposal. So no, I don't think that that is going to have a negative impact. Yes?
I was wondering, you believe you have support in the state. Do you hope to get the state approval to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour and also increase the use of speed and red light cameras sometime this year or next year? Is there any
We're going to work for this entire agenda to be implemented as quickly as possible. So our goal is to do everything we can this year. I don't want to get into handicapping because the discussions are just beginning now. But again, I looking to my colleagues from the state government here, and they are constantly talking to their city council colleagues as well. This is a problem that we understand deeply, we feel deeply, but more importantly, the people of the city feel deeply, and they're demanding action from us. And I think that will positively affect the discussions in Albany, so I'm hopeful for quick action.
Where do you think you put your chances at this point?
I don't handicap chances. I'm confident that there'll be a very positive dialogue, because I think this is an issue that people are increasingly focused on. So I'm hopeful for a good and fast result. Dave?
Mayor, can we ask you or the commissioner, when you talk about personnel changes, the highway department, also, traffic enforcement agents at the corners, how many people are we talking about? What's going to change? And the reason why I ask is, for example, south of Columbus Circle, from there to 57th, it's a free-for-all every rush hour. Sometimes we'll see people, police officers at the intersection, directing traffic. Other times there's nobody there. So I think that, in that neighborhood it's a big problem. So how many personnel overall are we talking about in the city who are going to be now stepping up the enforcement?
Well, I guess what I would say is I think part of this, don't mistake the fact that this is an ever-changing situation. And sometimes you need, again, I won't pretend to be a policing professional. I've got the ultimate policing professional right here, but I'll just make a common sense point. Sometimes you need prolonged enforcement. Sometimes short-term enforcement changes the behavior effectively. Sometimes things change in a neighborhood that cause for a greater problem that has to be addressed. It's not static, is my central point. So we're going to be moving with the situation and beefing up as needed. But let me let the commissioner fill out the answer.
We have resources in two ways, if you will, permanently assigned resources. So, for example, the Highway Division is increasing fairly significantly the number of officers assigned to that specific function. We've also increased both the training and equipping of the collision investigation entity so that we are now in a position to investigate every collision involving serious injury, something that we did not have the capacity or capability to do. Additionally, in terms of our traffic agents that you see at the many intersections, some of those are of necessity permanently assigned to particular choke points, but others we move around depending on events of any particular day, whether it be a snow emergency or something having to do with the United Nations. We don't have the resources to be everywhere all the time, so that there is permanent assignment of some personnel to meet a need, but then there's mobility of others to meet changing needs.
At least the highway permanent numbers, I mean, how much are those going to increase, for example? Because, I mean, you know
Well, the
that.
number we're going up to is 263. I think the number had fallen to as low as about 190 in that command, so a very significant increase in personnel into the highway division. Those are the highway officers that you'd see.
190 to 263.
I think the low number may have been as low as 190 at one time. I may be mistaken on that. Okay.
Last question on topic?
Last question on topic, this side, yes.
In a crash with a serious injury, is it common practice to use warrants and subpoenas to see if the driver or the victim was using any electronic device, or is this based on witness and self-reporting?
Say it again, is it a common practice? Let me make sure I got that
To
one.
use warrants and subpoenas to see if the driver or the victim was using an electronic device, or is this determination based on witness and self-reporting accounts?
Right, I'm texting. Take it away.
Now, in terms of, well, there's a combination of electronic devices, those who use the radar device to detect speed cameras, for example, radar guns. But I think you're referring more specifically to the ability for texting. That is a capability that we have, if in fact we have witnesses who say that is going on, or the ability to effectively, through our investigation, try to make a determination, was that person in fact on that device at that particular time of the incident. So one of the things about our changing world is, as we become all much more sophisticated in the use of technology, similarly the police are able to use that technology to great effect. I can honestly say I think there are very few cases I get briefed on in my morning crime report that don't involve use of technology in the resolution of that case.
But I do think this is an area where the state's been very strong, and you'll see it reflected in the proposals here. The fact is, a lot of these incidents do involve folks who are texting or on cell phones illegally. And we're going to take that very seriously. I think the overall concept here is that there's going to be more consequences for bad behavior that could endanger human life. And that is certainly a form of bad behavior that has become much more prevalent in the loss of life. So again, our hope here is that this will not only be a series of physical material measures, but it will also lead to a different discussion, a different societal discussion in which it's recognized that the texting while driving, for example, can have very profoundly negative consequences, and that will lead to consequences for the person who's exhibited that bad behavior. Okay, we've covered this topic. Other topics? Yes.
My question is for the police commissioner. What are your thoughts on the propriety of the mayor contacting a member of the police department about a political supporter who was arrested? Are you concerned that this type of inquiry unduly influences members of the department in terms of their decision making? And two, do you think it creates a perception problem of a double standard with the public?
I have no problem with it whatsoever, none whatsoever. That you can call anybody he wants anytime he wants. That I call my people anytime I want. That I call his people anytime I want. You need a free flow of communication in government. So I have no issue whatsoever with him calling anybody in my staff or his people calling people in my staff.
Do you think it unduly influences the decision making of members of the police department?
I do not, no.
And what about the perception of a double standard in the public?
That may be your perception, it's not mine.
Next question.
Just to piggyback off of that, did you feel that you were notified in time, learning about it in the next morning rather than learning about it when he was in the member inquiry?
There's nothing about this incident that required my involvement. That in policing, we give a great deal of discretion. That's certainly something I'm known for. I'm known as the great delegator. So if I have a precinct commander that can't resolve an issue of this type on his or her own, I'd be basically questioning that precinct commander's capabilities. I'm very comfortable with the action taken by the precinct commander. It was nothing I needed to be notified of immediately. The decision had been made. It was an appropriate decision from my perspective. So in terms of the timing of it, that I didn't need to be notified at 1:30 in the morning. It could wait till 6:30 in the morning, as far as I'm concerned.
Commissioner Bradley?
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, just to follow up, can you explain why you think the decision was appropriate that was made by the precinct commander? Was it because of the prominence of this person or because of the nature of the offenses? Was the suspended license not an issue? Just why substantively do you feel like it was an okay decision?
This was an individual that evidently the precinct commander knows quite well. They have interacted very frequently on issues involving the community that the precinct commander has responsibility for, and that the precinct commander obviously felt that there was no great risk that this individual was going to flee the country based on the offense that had been committed, and that he had no concern that the individual would in fact show up at court to address the issues that had been identified by the arresting officers. This is a discretion that is given to our precinct commanders, so I think it was used appropriately here. I have no problem with it.
This one's for the mayor. You recently resolved a labor contract with the Department of Environmental Protection Police that involved giving back pay. Does this indicate that you are inclined to agree to give back pay to other unions? How will this affect your negotiations with the other unions?
It doesn't indicate anything, honestly, because the contract in question was actually very different than all the other contracts we're talking about. It referred to the years 2005, 2006, and 2007. It was a very unusual situation that had gone unresolved, even earlier than the contracts covering the 300,000 city workers in general. As you remember in the budget presentation the other day, we talked about the contracts that go back to 08, 09, 10. This was a separate, very small unit, I think 100, 200 folks, that had a very unusual situation. So we do not consider this any kind of precedent. This is a standalone action. And in terms of the general approach, I think I've said it more times than I could count. You know, we're going to allow any idea to be put on the table by our colleagues in municipal labor. We're also very clear that we have a profound fiscal challenge ahead, and we need to find very substantial cost savings. But that all will be done in private negotiations and respectful negotiations.
Last question, guys?
Yes.
For the police commissioner, I'm curious if in your previous, you've been in this job obviously for a very long time, have you had previous situations where you've known of a mayor personally calling to find out about a person who's been arrested? And in situations like that, have you received a call or have they been directed to somebody at DCPI?
If I understand it correctly, you're asking, do I know of previous instances where a mayor may have called to inquire about an arrest? That has occurred during my time in my 40 years, so I don't see that as an exception, no.
All right, thanks, everyone.
The call came not to you, but to DCPI?
You're done. Thank you.